whatever you don't feed will starve. And that also includes fear. The sad part about overthinking every decision is that it slows you down. You just waste so much valuable time. There's information in your head currently that can help somebody somewhere in the world. The only reason why you don't know that it can help them is because they haven't told you so. But this is the catch. Hey there. Welcome back to another episode of the Many Roads podcast. I'm your host, Oba Okusanya, and this is, I guess, our third episode. And I was thinking about, sort of my journey into the world of podcasting and content creation and all that stuff. And it suddenly dawned on me that I've had to overcome some issues when it came to sharing my ideas and thoughts. And I wanted to kind of talk about that on this episode. So, that being said, uh, if you're new here, welcome to the Men Rose podcast. We talk life, fulfillment, all sorts of topics with the end goal and with the mindset of, building a fulfilling life. So, if you're new here, welcome. And if you're an existing member of the podcast, welcome back as well. But yeah, let's get into today's topic, I guess. So, for anyone who doesn't know me personally or doesn't know my journey and my story and other aspects of who I am, apart from being a podcaster now, it's a little crazy that I'm saying being a podcaster now. Um, Apart from being a podcaster now, I am also a bass player. I have played bass, guitar for over 15 years now. I would like to think I'm above average, uh, if I could speak humbly, in terms of skill level. And thinking about my journey through playing bass guitar, there was a very defining moment, and I want to kind of share that with you. So, I guess back to 2020, pandemic, crazy time in the world. We're all stuck at home, like it's just like an unprecedented time. Everyone's trying to figure out, is this the new normal? Do you remember when that was the saying? Is this the new normal? Everywhere you heard the new normal, the new normal, and then all of a sudden it just fizzled out. Nobody says the new normal anymore. But yeah, like everywhere you went to, everyone was saying the new normal. Anyways, I was of course stuck at home, working from home at the time. I remember with my wonderful wife in our little 2-bedroom condo back in Ottawa at the time, right? And I was trying to find creative ways to sort of express myself, right? Because as a creative, you're stuck at home and you're thinking like, okay, like I can't keep doing this. Like I went from a full schedule between like work life and church and family. I went from being busy every day of the week to just working from home, and then like the evenings are just like free, right? So with a lot of time on my hands, I was thinking, okay, you know what? Maybe this is a good time to do something that I've always wanted to do, which was I've always wanted to like record bass covers of songs that I like just enjoy. Just play bass over the songs and just put it on Instagram. And at the time, I was excited because this is something I've always wanted to do, but I never got around to doing it. And looking back now, I see why I didn't. It was because there was a lot of issues that I had to deal with and work through with regards to getting to a place where I was comfortable to kind of like share something that I created and put it out there in the world, you know. And that story is crazy because I've told people this in the past, and I can see my eyes light up when I say I struggled with putting something that I created and putting it out in the world. It's because a lot of people also struggle with this, right? So you might listen to this and you might be able to relate. And for someone else, you might not be able to relate. I apologize if you can't. But there's an element in all of us, there's a part in all of us where, you know, when it comes to putting something out there in the world, which could be, of course, like it could be a book you write or a presentation you make, or it could be an opinion piece. It could be whatever it is that you put out there in the world. It could be, if you're a fashion designer, it could be a piece of clothing that you're releasing for your brand, putting that out there in the world. And maybe you're just getting started. It could be sometimes difficult because of some of the things that we have to work through. And I wanted to share that with you today. Part of, I guess, my journey and some of the things that I've been able to work through are these five things that I want to walk you through as well. And hopefully that helps you in some form or shape. Anyways, let's get into all of it. So, the first thing I'd like to tell you, and you might have guessed it, it's around the issue of fear. And one thing I had to realize was I had to get to a place where I confronted my fears. Now, what does that look like? The fear is something that we can all relate to. Fear of rejection, fear of criticism, fear of, like, there's enough fears to go around, right? Um, some people are afraid of cats, some people it's dogs. I am terrified of snakes. Yeah, there's enough fears to go around. Now, if you have a lot of fear around putting something that you've created and putting that in the world, you will never get past that and to a place where you can now do this comfortably. What do I mean by that? What I'm trying to say is, until you conquer that fear, it won't let you go. And I'm going to say something and it might sound very obvious, but the only way to conquer fear is to confront it. You can't conquer something that you're not willing to face. You know, I remember in my story, eventually what I had to do was I had to get to a place where I recorded a bass cover and I just put it out. And like I was like checking my phone, like, oh, did somebody say they hate this? Which is crazy, right? Because like who cares? But at the time I was like, hey, like, oh my gosh, this is gonna flop. But essentially by conquering that fear, by confronting that fear rather, eventually I began to conquer it. And it's not enough to just confront that fear one time. You have to constantly and consistently do this. Chip away at it. You know, for someone, it might be the fear of public speaking. You can't overcome that fear until you actually speak in public. I know, right? Crazy. But you can't actually overcome that fear until you speak in public. And the more you do it, the more practice you get, the better you become. You gain more confidence. And before you know it, that fear like is gone. I heard someone say this a while ago. They said, whatever you don't feed will starve. Whatever you don't feed will starve. And that also includes fear. If you don't feed the fear by always avoiding the thing that causes the fear, eventually it starves and it dies away. You know, so that would be step number one. I would encourage you, and as much as you can, as responsible as you can as well, in a responsible way, confront your fear. Now, I'm not saying go do something crazy like if you're afraid of heights, go jump off a building. That's not what I'm saying. Well, let's chill, right? But confront your fear in a responsible, consistent manner, and eventually you'll conquer it. And once you conquer it, sharing ideas and putting yourself out in the world becomes a whole lot easier. You know what I mean? So that would be step number one. I want you to confront your fears. Now to the second step. After confronting your fears, you might have to deal with some overthinking. Now, a lot of people can probably relate to this, right? There's a lot of overthinking that we as humans tend to get boggled down in and weighed down in as we kind of go through life. You know, there's so many thoughts that come across and come through your mind when you're thinking of whatever it is that you're planning to do. For some people, it could be thinking about what other people might say. You know, and I used to struggle with this so much, like the thoughts of what people might say, and I would overthink to the point where I would actually start to give examples of what people might say, right? So, what if they say it's not great? What if they say, "Oh, this is trash"? What if they say this? Just imagine it. I've thought about it. And you probably too, in some way, shape, or form, have had to deal with this. where you find yourself in a place where you're constantly overthinking every decision. And the sad part about overthinking every decision is that it slows you down. You just waste so much valuable time. The time that you could have spent in doing and learning, you just waste it in overthinking. And it also takes a lot of energy. Like it's really tedious. It's really tiring to be constantly overthinking all your decisions and overthinking your ideas and overthinking, like, one time I was talking to a friend and I was kind of working through some, I guess, some decision that I needed to make. And and she was just like, "Hey, can you just stop? All that you've said and all that you've just like planned out in your head hasn't happened. It hasn't even happened. And here you are already overthinking every aspect of it. Like you can see into the future and you're anticipating people's reactions and you're anticipating how it's going to work out. Like there's no point in overthinking. It doesn't help anyone." And the advice that I stumbled across, I forget where it was with regards to overthinking, was to take the action of challenging the thoughts that came to my mind. So, for instance, what does that look like practically, right? Let's say you are afraid of public speaking, right? And when it comes to public speaking, you've conquered that fear, but now you're in a place where you're constantly overthinking every time you need to speak in public. So you find yourself just like racing through thoughts of, ooh, what if I stutter? What if I don't say the right word? What if my intonation is wrong? What if my speed is off? What if? I know, right? Right there and then, I want you to challenge the thought. So let's say the thought that comes to your mind is, what if I say the wrong word? Why don't you just challenge it and say, what if I say the right word? Or even if I say the wrong word, what happens? What if I say something and people laugh? What if I share a joke and they don't laugh? Well, what if they do? You just never know. And overthinking robs you of that critical feedback that you need to improve, right? So, with regards to your overthinking, and in my case, what really helped was confronting those thoughts and like saying, hey, just play the advocate. I don't like to say devil's advocate because I'm not the devil's advocate, but play God's advocate. How about that? Play God's advocate and flip the script on that thought. So instead of what if it doesn't work, what if it does work? Instead of what if they hate it, what if they love it? And even if they hate it, who really cares? Like, who cares? Anyways, that's step number three. That's step number two, rather. Which brings me to step number three. This one was a doozy. This one was something that I struggled with. And quite honestly, I still struggle with this. I'm still working through a lot of this. It's chasing perfection. You know, perfection is like a moving goalpost, and you can't score if every time before you take the shot the goalpost moves or the rim moves. You can't score. Like it's not possible. Like this is, but that's what a lot of us do when we chase perfection. Personally, I have a background in civil engineering, so I'm trained as a civil engineer. I went to school, university for that. And as an engineer, you're trained to be very precise and very accurate. I mean, think about it, right? Civil engineers build bridges and structures and buildings and all that sort of thing. I mean, you would want whoever is in charge of those calculations for that bridge to be very precise and perfect with their calculations, right? Because human lives depend on it. But the challenge there becomes when you take that same degree of perfection and accuracy and precision and you bring it into other aspects of your life. All of a sudden, nothing is perfect. Nothing is good enough to be released. Nothing is good enough to be put out there. You want to dot every I and cross every T. You just want things to be perfect. At some point in my life, I used to obsess over whatever it is that I was doing, up to the point where I would tell myself that if I'm doing something for somebody, by the time it gets into their hands, they must not have any comments to make other than this is perfect. Can you imagine how tiring that approach is in life? Can you imagine how it's trust me, it's just too much. I don't do this, man. you know, but thinking through that now, and honestly, like I said at the beginning of this section, like I still struggle with this. And honestly, to be quite honest with you, this is my second time recording this video because of my perfection and all that stuff. Because I was like, hey, the first time I did it, this wasn't good, this wasn't great. Hey, yes, I'm still work in progress, right? But yeah, I hope, someone out there who's listening to this, who's watching this, or however you're consuming this podcast, I hope you get a chance to break out of the box of perfection that you've put yourself in, because it's actually limiting your progress. It's actually slowing you down significantly. And sometimes I think about how much further along I would be if I didn't spend all those years trying to be perfect. Ooh, sometimes I think about how much freer I would be, how much more of myself I would have discovered if I wasn't constantly trying to be perfect, trying to please people with my perfection. A lot of us actually struggle with that. We say we're being perfect, or we're chasing perfection for ourselves. But if you do a lot of internal reflection, you actually realize you're trying to be perfect for other people. Because let me ask you this. If they took away the opinions of other people from everything that you ever did, how would you live life? How would you live life if today, all of a sudden, other people's opinions didn't count? What are the things you would do differently? What new steps would you take? Would you launch that business? Would you start that course? Would you launch that fashion line? Would you switch careers? Would you move to a new city? What are some of the things you would do if the opinions of other people didn't matter? And there's a little bit of balance here. See, I'm faith oriented. I'm a Christian. And one of the scriptures in the Bible says that in the multitude of counsel there is safety, which essentially means that, it's always good to kind of talk to other people and get some sort of counsel, like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Does it make sense? And of course, if you hear from multiple people, like, hey, you probably shouldn't do that, there's probably some safety, probably some wisdom in them saying that. But the thing about that is you have to judge the counsel. It's not every advice that's good advice. It's not every opinion that should count, right? So I digress, but I said all that to say this. Don't chase perfection. Like it's an impossible standard to attain to. It's an impossible uh goal to score. It's just not possible. Don't do that to yourself. So don't chase perfection. All right. To step number 4, right? I want you to forget the negative experiences. Trauma, 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 trauma. Yes, we're going to talk about it. There are a lot of negative experiences that we've had in the past that find their way to, and they just creep into our present. They creep into our now. And every now and then they pop up. And of course, you're human. You have an emotional reaction to that. But the thing is, if those negative experiences that are undealt with have something to do with this thing that you're working on, this step that you need to take, for instance, there was a time when I was playing bass guitar at a church, and, you know, long and short of it was that I was kind of like the second bass player at the time at that church. And, you know, they had, I guess it was like a big conference, and there was a better bass player. I was scheduled to play on that very Friday, and I had started to play through the set. And all of a sudden, I just see some commotion. I see movements. I'm like, yo, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? And long and short, before I know it, I'm being told, hey, you need to swap with the better bass player. Because it's a conference, you can't play because you're not good enough, essentially. And I remember being so pissed off because it was during the winter time, and I had missed my bus. This was like over 10 years ago. This was 20. I don't know, it's like 12 years ago. I had missed my bus to get to church that day, and I had walked in the cold. Like, if you know Ottawa weather, like crazy dead cold in the middle of winter, it was like January. I had walked in the cold for like over 30 minutes just so I could make it there in time to play. And while I'm playing, you're telling me I'm being kicked off. I was like, bun everybody, man. Like, you guys are wild. You guys are crazy. What do you mean? And that memory, like, it's stuck in my head for for a long time, you know. And eventually I would get to the place where I become a whole lot better and, but still that never left me. And that negative experience, maybe when I had to go play at a different place, would pop up like, hey, there's other bass players here who are probably better than you. I know, but I had to find a way to get to a place where I realized they might be better than me, but they're not me. Like, if I could just take a moment to talk to you about the fact that that you are unique and no one can do whatever it is that you do the way you do it. And the great thing is, with skill, you can always improve. But that individuality that you bring to it, that unique approach that you bring to it, no one can take that away from you. Like, no one. It doesn't care it doesn't matter who they are. They can't take that away from you. So I say all that to say this, right? When it comes to your negative experiences, you need to deal with them. You can't just brush them aside. So for instance, maybe you were supposed to deliver a presentation at work, and your first time doing it, you bombed. Like, just like, it was like crickets in the room. Like, people were like, this is bad. And that experience is in your head. Like, it's stuck there. And now you're being asked maybe a couple of weeks later to deliver another presentation. And all of a sudden, that experience and that memory is coming back and it's flooding your mind. And now you're like overwhelmed. This is what I found that works in dealing with those kind of situations. I typically would honestly acknowledge the part I played in that negative experience. And in some cases, you didn't play a part. In some cases, it's just something that happened to you. But if you did play a part, like for instance, in delivering a bad presentation, that person played a part. Maybe they were not prepared enough. Maybe they could have done a little more practice. Maybe they could have better worked on their slides or on their delivery. So acknowledge the part that you played, figure out what you need to learn from the experience, right? And implement that lesson and keep it pushing. So essentially, what I'm saying is take the negative experience, take out the core lessons, and improve and keep it pushing. And if it's something that you had no part to play in, understand that human beings are human beings. And you allowing that negative experience to continue to define your life is only giving that person power over you. Why would you even do that? Right? Why would you do that? So acknowledge the part you played if you did play a part in that negative experience. Look for any lessons you can learn and move on. All right. The last one, right? And I think this is the most important kind of discovery I made in this process of trying to figure out, how to get to a place where I'm comfortable to put out whatever it is that I create out there in the world and to share that with people. Uh, and I just want to warn you that it's going to sound very cliche, but it's really true. The last step number 5, I want you to believe in yourself. And not just believe in yourself, I want you to believe in yourself and the value that you have. A lot of us struggle with believing in ourselves and the values that we have. And I don't know why. Now that I think about it, I take a back seat. I don't know why all those years I thought that I didn't have anything of value to say or anything of value to provide or to contribute. I don't know why I thought for all those years that I had nothing. Because the truth is everyone has something. I'm reminded of a story I heard by Daniel Priestley. He had gone on a trip, a vacation to Bali. I really want to go to Bali, by the way, but it's far. I digress. But anyways, he had gone on a trip to Bali, and they had decided to hike this popular mountain. I don't know what it's called, but they decided to hike the mountain. And the way the tour was set up, the tour company had it set up, was that you would leave your hotels at midnight, take the bus to the foot of the mountain, the base of the mountain, and you would climb and hike the mountain through the midnight, through the early hours of the day. Now, taking a bus in the midnight and hiking the mountain, I'm not doing that. I'm sorry. Like that's just wild. But anyways, he did it with his family apparently. And you know, it's about 6 a.m. They get to the top of the mountain. They've hiked through the night, through the early hours of the morning. They get to the top of the mountain. It's 6 a.m. They arrive at sunrise. So imagine this: you're on the top of a mountain. It's sunrise. The sun's coming up. Like can you just picture that view? You're kind of in the clouds a little. The air quality must at that point is like it's insane. You know what I mean? Like you're breathing in like fresh air. It's the sun is rising. It's like very romantic moment. At that point, you want your significant other right beside you, whatever. But in his story, he says how while he was taking in the view of the mountain and just kind of looking around, like, wow, this is gorgeous. This is beautiful. He saw at the corner of his eye, he saw another mountain. And he started to think to himself, wait, what mountain is that? Like, what's that? So he asked the tour guide, he's like, hey, what mountain is that that's over there that I'm seeing from here? Can we go hike that mountain too? Like, I want to see what that mountain is. I want to look at that mountain. Like, I want to see what the view from that mountain is. Like, can we go hike the mountain? Can we go tomorrow? Um, like, can you put us in for to go do that tomorrow? Do you think you can get us a bus that could take us tomorrow? And he's like asking other people who are on the tour, like, hey, would you guys want to do that tomorrow? We can do that tomorrow. Like, let's do it tomorrow. Like, it'll be nice to climb that mountain too. And he says the tour guide, and I'm paraphrasing here, right? The tour guide says something along the lines of this to him. The tour guide said, Mr. Daniel, instead of focusing on the mountain that you're not on, why don't you focus on the mountain that you currently are on and the beauty of it? Like, instead of worrying about this other mountain and focusing on that mountain and thinking that the view from there is better, why don't you just take in the view from where you're currently in? Like, dude, like, this is a crazy view. You're missing this by focusing on what the other mountain's view could look like. And that's what a lot of us do with our value. We like to think that other people have value. And we like to think that other people are valuable, and we are not. We like to think that other people have something to contribute, something to say, something to write, and that we don't. And that could not be further from the truth because at the fundamental level of every human being, there is so much value. Let's do a quick exercise. I want you to think about your life up until this point. Think about all the things you've been through. Think about all the lessons you've learned. Think about all the relationships you've had and you have. Think about all the places you've been. Think about all the work you've done: school, education, career, background, family, friendships. Think about all that stuff. Think about your life story. It's packed with value. But the thing is, if you don't see it, how will others? If you don't see it as something valuable, how will others see it as valuable? Believe in yourself and the value that you provide. Believe in the fact that you have something to offer. I wish I could yell this from the mountaintops. I wish I could. I wish I could grab a megaphone and like put it right beside your ear and be like, believe in yourself. You know, and this is not that motivational woo woo like what I mean, like people are doing on the internet now. Like it's not. This is not one of those because frankly, that stuff doesn't actually go a long way. I'm saying this because this is what actually worked for me, and the additional aspect to that is just the fact that if you understand the God that created you and you understand who you are and whose you are, you have no choice but to believe in yourself. If you understand that this God that created the entire universe and like hung the stars in the sky and told the water where to be also created you, think about the fact that the God who created diamonds, which we think are valuable, also created you. Like, it's a no-brainer. And to think that that same God says that, you're like the creme de la creme of his creation because nothing else was created in his image, only you were. Boy, you better get out of here. You are valuable. And I want you to look at yourself from that lens, from that perspective. So I know I've said a lot, and in a short amount of time, it might seem like it's a lot of thoughts, but I really do hope that this helps you in some way, some shape, some form to process some of the things that you're currently going through, or that this just encourages you to do that thing that you've been waiting on to do for a while now, the project that you've put on the back burner because you think it's not going to help somebody. See, the thing is this: there's information in your head currently that can help somebody somewhere in the world. And the only reason why you don't know that it can help them is because they haven't told you so. But this is the catch. It's kind of like the chicken and the egg. You know that the analogy of the chicken and the egg, where it's like, which one came first, the chicken or the egg? Right? Did the chicken come first and then lay eggs, or did eggs come first and then the eggs kind of developed into a chicken? That analogy. That's kind of how this is, in the sense that it's very easy as humans to think that people have to validate your value before you start putting yourself out there, when in reality, it works in reverse. You'll have to get comfortable with putting yourself out there and putting whatever it is that you create out there. And then you'll get feedback that this is valuable, which is why you have to start from a standpoint of believing that you are valuable and all that you have is valuable. Because if you wait for that external validation and that external feedback, you'll never get to the place where you're able to do the things that you're supposed to do. I hope that makes sense. So just to recap, right? Please confront your fears. Please stop overthinking. Don't chase perfection. Forget the negative experiences and believe in yourself and the value that you can provide. And I hope this helps you. And I hope that you do get some value out of this. I think this is a good place to leave it for now. Don't rob the world of what you have to offer. There's so much in you that the world needs to see. There's so much in you that the world needs to have and enjoy. Right? So don't rob us of what you have to offer. Thank you so much for watching. If you watched up until this point, and thanks for subscribing, all that stuff. Please let me know what you think about all that I've spoken about, your thoughts, reactions, comments, put it in the comment section. Let me know what you think. That's the pod. It's been great hanging with you all. Till next time, God bless.